July 2024 was the last day when Mamta Kafle was seen by her friends and colleagues, because from that day onwards, there's been no trace of Mamta. On the 28th, she had even posted a sweet video with her daughter on social media. Seeing her, it seemed like she was very happy. So, how did such a seemingly happy Mamta, who loved her daughter so dearly, suddenly disappear? Let's learn more about today's case that revolves around the disappearance of Mamta Kafle. Mamta Kafle was born in 1996 in the Bor district of Nepal. From childhood, Mamta was a cheerful and sensible girl. She was the apple of her parents' eyes. Anyone who met her would always say, "Mamta is wise beyond her years." This was because even at a young age, she had a great sense of responsibility, something even many adults lack. When Mamta started school, even at that age, she was very punctual and disciplined. Basically, she was a very, very good student. She did well in academics, was well-behaved, and even her teachers adored her. Because of all these qualities, her teachers would often praise her. But despite all the praise and recognition she received, Mamta never became arrogant. On the contrary, she was very kind and always helped others. Because of this compassionate nature, she decided to pursue nursing as a career so that she could dedicate her life to helping people. After finishing school, Mamta's parents sent her to Bangalore, where she started studying nursing at Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. During her time in Bangalore, Mamta met a boy through mutual friends. His name was Naresh. Naresh was also from Nepal, just like Mamta, but due to his job, he had been living in the United States since June 2017. While the rest of his family was still in Nepal. His father, Lan Mani Bhatt, ran a pharmacy in Kanchampur, Nepal, and his mother was a homemaker. By the time Mamta had barely finished college, Naresh was already a well-settled man in his 30s. And his job wasn't just an ordinary job. He was serving in the U.S. military as an automated logistics specialist. Now, when I say military, you might imagine a disciplined, outgoing, patriotic person who gels easily with fellow military men and builds bonds beyond duty. But Naresh was the opposite. He was quiet and almost introverted, not someone who socialized much. Even after serving in the U.S. military for years, he had very few friends. However, because of their shared Nepali background, Mamta and Naresh understood each other and each other's culture very well. This helped them grow closer quickly, and eventually, their friendship turned into love. Their relationship was good, but one notable point was the 9-year age gap between them. That's quite significant, as Naresh was in his 30s. But still, both families agreed to the relationship because they believed that this would make Mamta happy, and Naresh would provide her with a stable life. So, both families decided that Mamta and Naresh would marry in Nepal, following all the traditional rituals, with only close friends and family invited. Even though it wasn't a grand wedding, it was a happy and peaceful one, where both families celebrated joyfully. After their wedding in December 2020, Mamta and Naresh spent 6 months in Nepal, and by July 2021, they finally moved to the United States, where they lived in Naresh's previous home. This was Mamta's first time entering the U.S. In fact, her first time visiting a foreign country. She was unfamiliar with the customs, traditions, and lifestyle there, so it took her a little time to adjust. But surprisingly, Mamta quickly grew fond of the U.S. She made a lot of friends and completed her nursing training there. After finishing her training, she also got a job at a local hospital, which allowed her not only to follow her passion, but also to support her husband. Time flew by for the couple in the U.S., and before they knew it, they had been married for 2 years. They were now ready for the next phase of life. On August 28, 2023, Mamta gave birth to a beautiful daughter whom they named Nima. Nima's birth was the happiest moment of Mamta's life, and even Naresh, who was usually quiet, seemed very happy after her arrival. To celebrate, he bought a large 5-bedroom house in Manassas Park, Virginia, and the whole family shifted there. After becoming a mother, Mamta's priorities changed. She began spending more and more time with her daughter. She was often seen on TikTok Max, the U.S., and even with random strangers, Mamta was always kind and warm. So much so that her friends and well-wishers would sometimes worry that someone might take advantage of her goodness. Mamta was a good-hearted and bright individual. But on the other hand, Naresh had a gloomy and withdrawn personality. He had a very different vibe, introverted, and he didn't communicate with people much, which isn't a bad thing, but it made him the polar opposite of Mamta. Just imagine how he must have felt, having lived in the U.S. for years, working for so long, and still not having many friends, while his wife, who had only been there for 2 years, had already become very popular. Still, the Bott family seemed happy, and anyone who saw them thought they were a perfect, happy family. But sadly, their happy days were numbered. Just a few months after Nima's birth, in early 2024, Naresh lost his job, which was a huge blow to the family. Now, all the responsibilities fell on Mamta's shoulders. Losing the job was a major setback, but the family was still trying to survive and manage things somehow. But after this incident, after Naresh lost his job, something happened to Mamta, something that caused a drastic shift in her personality. Not only was Mamta's personality changing, but her day-to-day behavior had also started shifting rapidly. As I mentioned earlier, Mamta had many well-wishers. She was quite popular among people. So naturally, her friends noticed these behavioral changes too. But none of them said anything. The search for a missing mother in Manassas Park. That's how news reports began, and now questions were growing about her sudden disappearance. Just a few hours ago, her husband spoke at a press conference, but Mamta's friends didn't like what he had to say. They felt it was cold, distant, and manipulative. People had gathered outside the police department, demanding answers. Mamta had been missing since July 31st. One of her close friends said, "She tried to call me the night of the 28th. She called a couple of times, but I was asleep." Flyers were now posted all around the neighborhood. That night, police confirmed that the last person to see Mamta alive was her husband. July 27th, 2024, was the last day Mamta was seen at her hospital. After that, she never showed up for work. On July 28th, she tried to call her close friend, Nadia Navar, someone she shared everything with. It's believed she was trying to tell Nadia something important, but the call never connected. Later that same day, Mamta uploaded a video on TikTok Max, the U.S., and after she didn't show up at the hospital for several days, one of her colleagues finally filed a missing person report. That's when, on August 2nd, the police arrived at Naresh's home for a welfare check. When police asked Naresh about Mamta's disappearance, he told them that Mamta wasn't missing. He claimed she had gone to visit one of her sisters in New York or Texas. She left on a Tuesday. She said she'd visit her sister either in New York or Texas, and then she said she'd destroy her phone, and she did, and then she left. Naresh told the officers, "She left because we were about to separate. I was about to sell the house. A home inspection was scheduled too." He also told police that Mamta disappearing for long periods wasn't new. It had happened before. That's why he didn't want to file any missing report about his wife. But the most shocking revelation Naresh gave to police was that he and Mamta were getting divorced. This clearly suggested that everything was not as perfect in their relationship as it seemed from the outside. The happy family image was just a facade. Since Naresh insisted that this was not a big deal, that Mamta had done this before, the police initially believed him and didn't take any further action. But soon, things started to emerge that shook the entire town. On August 4th, Naresh contacted the police again. He became the first person they interrogated formally. During interrogation, Naresh told them that Mamta's clothes, passport, and green card were all missing, which suggested that she had left the U.S. But police didn't believe him. His statements were full of inconsistencies and loopholes, and he kept changing his story. Sometimes claiming he last saw Mamta on the night of July 31st, and other times saying it was the morning of August 1st. Also, Mamta's entire family lived in Nepal, so she couldn't have gone to New York or Texas. She had no family there. Because of all these contradictions, police suspicion toward Naresh started growing. Still, a few days later, Naresh tried to present himself as cooperative, but those who truly knew Mamta had suspected Naresh from the beginning. They simply couldn't believe that such a dedicated wife and mother, who deeply loved her daughter, would just walk away from her, especially with her daughter's birthday just days away. Mamta's co-workers told the media that for some time, Mamta had been talking about divorcing Naresh and moving on. But every time she brought it up, Naresh would manipulate her emotionally and convince her to stay. They also claimed that Mamta had visible bruises on her body, indicating domestic violence. Due to her desire to separate, Mamta had been seeking help for several months. She had even joined support groups for single moms, just hoping to find any help or direction. All of this pointed to a chilling truth. The relationship between Mamta and Naresh was not what it looked like. On social media, they appeared to be a happy, wholesome couple, but their reality was far darker. But at that point, all of this was still just allegations. Naresh was behaving perfectly with the police. In fact, he was overly cooperative, going above and beyond to help in the investigation. Perhaps a little too helpful. Still, no one was buying it. Mamta's friends, colleagues, and well-wishers were all deeply concerned for her daughter, Nima, because no one trusted Naresh anymore. The entire city organized community searches, forming groups to search every corner for Mamta. But Naresh was never seen in any of these search efforts. In the following days, as police kept investigating Mamta's whereabouts, they discovered something extremely suspicious. After reviewing CCTV footage from local stores, they saw that on July 30th, Naresh had purchased 3 knives from a Walmart store. And the very next day, he bought cleaning supplies from another Walmart. If that wasn't shady enough, Naresh had said Mamta destroyed her phone before leaving, but her phone's last known location was in Loudoun County, the same place where Naresh was spotted. At this point, it was becoming very clear that Naresh was trying hard to gain sympathy. In his interviews and public statements, he tried to portray himself as the victim. But what Naresh didn't realize was that the police were quietly conducting a full-scale investigation behind his back. And what the police were learning was completely opposite of what Naresh was trying to portray. Days passed, and then finally came August 20th, Nima's birthday. Surprisingly, even after Mamta's disappearance, Naresh hosted a birthday celebration for his daughter. Maybe he was genuinely trying to be a good father, or maybe he just wasn't bothered at all. Mamta's friends, neighbors, and everyone close to her came to celebrate with Nima and brought her gifts. They congratulated the little girl and cheered her up, but something very strange was happening at this birthday party. Naresh didn't allow anyone to take pictures, not even of Nima, the birthday girl. You know how people usually click photos when the cake is cut? From every angle? Naresh forbade all of it. His reason? It invades my family's privacy. Because of such odd behavior, suspicions toward Naresh grew even stronger, and those doubts turned into certainty the very next day. Because the next day, police arrived at Naresh's house with a warrant to arrest him. As I told you earlier, Naresh had been cooperating with the police, very supportive, very helpful. But the day police arrived at his doorstep with a warrant, he was a completely different man. Without knowing exactly what was happening, he stopped cooperating. He wasn't listening, wasn't speaking. It was clear that Naresh was hiding something from the police. But this time, the officers weren't going to believe a single word he said. They immediately began searching his house. The search lasted through the night, and by the next morning when it ended, Naresh was seen in handcuffs, walking alongside an officer. Whatever police found inside, the house was truly shocking. In Naresh's bedroom, police discovered blood stains that led toward the bathroom. This suggested someone's body had been dragged from the bedroom to the bathroom. Out of the 3 knives Naresh had purchased, 2 were missing, and a large amount of cleaning supplies had clearly been used inside the home. This was enough evidence for police to officially list Naresh as a person of interest. His baby daughter, Nima, was placed in foster care, at least until Mamta's family could arrive in the U.S. from Nepal. From the start of the investigation, since the day Mamta's missing report was filed, Naresh had been pretending to be a heartbroken husband. In interviews, he'd say things like, "I'm the one who's suffering, my baby and myself. We're suffering the most." But now, his true face was exposed. Police charged Naresh with concealment of a dead body, but not murder, because the current evidence wasn't enough to prove that he killed Mamta. Naresh is now in police custody, and the investigation is still ongoing. Mamta is still missing, and it's now been over 2 months since her disappearance. At this point, U.S. police have officially assumed that Mamta Kafle is no longer alive. Yet the people of Manassas Park haven't given up. They continue to search for her, holding prayer vigils and placing candles and flowers in front of her home. This just shows how deeply loved Mamta was by her community. But despite everything, one major question still remains unanswered. Even after 2 months, did Naresh kill Mamta? And if he did, what was his motive? Naresh still pleads not guilty. But let's just assume for a moment that he did kill Mamta. Then why did he do it? And how did he do it? Well, we do have some details, some clues that help us deduce a possible motive. Again, I'm emphasizing that this is only a hypothesis, not confirmed fact. Back in February 2024, Mamta had called the police to their home. She had filed a complaint against Naresh, stating that he was refusing to return her documents, like her passport and green card. Naresh had even broken her phone. And that's not all. We've learned more about Naresh's illegitimacy and how he was under heavy financial stress. He was often angry, and he took out all that rage on Mamta. He had to pay $1,200 a month for his car and $2,000 monthly mortgage for the house. Naresh obviously couldn't afford it anymore. On August 19th, he even sold his Tesla. He also did something truly disturbing. He accepted donations from people, using Mamta's name and story as an excuse. Police found out during the investigation that after Mamta went missing, Naresh had started making some very strange Google searches about death. All of this just shows that Naresh knew exactly what he was doing, and he may have planned Mamta's disappearance, or worse, her murder, very methodically. Again, let me repeat, this is still an ongoing case. Naresh has not yet been proven guilty, and Mamta has still not been found. But in my opinion, the biggest victim in this entire tragedy is little Nima. She has lost her mother, and now there's a very real possibility that her father could be the killer, and he's no longer with her either.